Essay Humanities versus Science by S. Radhakrishnan, Dr. S. Radhakrishnan. The three obstacles which stand in the way of national development are ignorance, disease, and poverty. As mentioned in the summary of these, the major obstacle is ignorance. If we are able to remove ignorance from men's mind, their poverty also will diminish, their disease also will be eliminated. That is very essential. So basically, he establishes that these are the problems. Ignorance, disease, and poverty are the basic problems, or the most severe out of these is ignorance. Okay, we have been trying to achieve through our 5-year plans. So basically, he mentions the 5-year plans, a kind of economic development which will lead to the spread of education, the removal of illiteracy, the lowering of the incidence of disease, and the elimination as much as possible of poverty. He says that India, we means India as a nation, we implement 5-year plans in order to achieve the the possible development as a country. We have men and women energetic and eager to do their best, and we have vast natural resources also. In spite of all these things, what is it that prevents us from achieving something great and glorious here? That is, I say that it is the lack of proper education in quality as well as in quantity. So the lack of proper education is a major problem. We have enough men and women, enthusiastic men and women, and we have natural resources. But the problem is that we lack proper education in quality and quantity. When we look at the country and the vast problems which it is facing, it is the educated men who have competency and skill, who have sense of direction, who have a social purpose. That is the problem. We don't have much educated men who has all these kind of qualities. It is such people who will be able to transform our societies. If we are to achieve that, we have to tackle our educational problems more seriously than we have done hitherto. That is, this must be regarded as the highest priority in any kind of social and economic reconstruction in our country. So we have to actually, this is happening just after this we gained independence. So basically after 1947 and around 1960s or something like that. The reason is that he is talking about 5-year plans. So 5-year plans were implemented after we started implementing it in, I think it is back in 1951 or something. So 5-year plans are basically those development plans that we implemented and we followed it to achieve some kind of economic development. And he talks about the problems faced by India as a country. Now, technological education. So that is the second part of this essay. People nowadays are generally attracted by technological education and naturally too. But we should also remember that technological education without the complement of the humanistic studies will be imperfect, lopsided, and deficient. It is possible for us, by the control we have obtained over the forces of nature, to bring about paradise on earth. So that means that science is basically considered as a branch of knowledge which help us to overcome the obstacles created by nature. Basically, the diseases we found lots of medicines that can help us to beat the diseases, and then that kind of things. Okay, we can overcome the challenges put forwarded by nature. It is equally possible for us by pressing a button to destroy continents. This is a mention to nukes, nuclear weapons. And then, if the choice is to be made wisely, we must be cultivated in the arts of civilized life. So the point is that if you want to have wisdom, or if you want to take specific measures or specific actions, we should have a very mature civilized kind of mentality. Humanistic training and technological study must be regarded as complementary to each other. So both are important. Humanistic training and technological study, they should complement each other. They should not regarded as divorced or as separated from each other. The industrial growth of our country requires a large number of scientists, technicians and engineers. That's a reality. The rush in our universities for courses in science and technology is natural. Men trained in these practical courses help to increase productivity, agricultural and industrial. We know that lots of people are getting into the colleges. Back then itself, the people are they have this tendency to pursue engineering courses, science related courses, and then this is to boost that was a demand. And he says that they also hope to find employment easily. To help the student to earn a living is one of the functions of education. So we always think about the scope of a degree so that we can get a job as soon as possible. I do not believe that scientific and technological studies are devoid of moral values. Science is both knowledge and power. It has interest as well as utility. It is illuminating as well as fruitful. It demands disciplined devotion to the pursuit of truth. We know that the scientific steps or scientific temperament requires a devotion to the pursuit of truth. അത് അങ്ങനെ സ്റ്റെപ്പ് ബൈ സ്റ്റെപ്പായി അത്രയും വി ഹാവ് ടു ഫോക്കസ് വി ഷുഡ് ഹാവ് ദറ്റ് ഹയസ്റ്റ് ഫോക്കസ് ഇൻ സയൻസ്. ഇറ്റ് ഡിമാൻഡ്സ് it won't take any subjectivity. We know that it develops in its votaries an attitude of tolerance, open mindedness, freedom from prejudice, and hospitality to new ideas. Science reveals to us the inexhaustible richness of the world, its unexpectedness, its wonder. So here basically he talks about science and technological studies, how it is a truth seeking, its tendency in finding truths. And then, nevertheless, these qualities are developed by science incidentally and not immediately. It does not directly deal with the non intellectual aspects of human nature. Economic man who produces and consumes, the intellectual man, the scientific man, is not the whole man. The disproportionate emphasis on science and technology has been causing concern to thinking men over the world. So there is a disproportion between the people who are educated in science. The thing is that there is a gap. There is something that creates a gap between a man's action and his thought. The great crimes against civilization are committed not by the primitive and the uneducated, but the highly educated and the so called civilized. He says so because he realized, Radhakrishnan realized that the problems, especially the world wars and that kind of things, are not created by uncivilized primitive men. It was done by the most educated, the high rated civilized people who were well educated, who had the knowledge, and we know that what happened in the during those days, and the same thing is going on. So he talks about the danger of science, the danger of those men, those individuals who doesn't have the idea or the moral values with respect to their knowledge in science. Now he goes on to speaking. He goes on humanities, continues with humanities. We come to the universe to be equipped with the knowledge and the skills by which we will be able to help building up of our country. For us, it is important. Are we doing it? Are the universities providing the right material for the nation building operation? Are they giving them the knowledge and the skill which are essential for any kind of process? You come here to study sciences, to study humanities, to study theology also, which is not an unimportant science. Science itself is necessary because the wonders of science have transformed this world. It is wrong to think, as once upon a time Blake said. So, William Blake, for us, this is important. William Blake said, the tree of life is sustained by art, the tree of death by science. So, it was the stand of William Blake. It is a misleading conception, but actually, the author Radhakrishnan he opposes this idea. Science may be abused, but that is not the fault of science. This is the fault of man. So that is the fault of man. We can't blame science for the problems created. It is because of the men who misused it. It is therefore essential for us to provide our students with the best that is possible in sciences and technology. It is these things that help us to provide the necessities for our people. Humanities again are important because they tell us about our own nature, how we have to grow from day to day. So, what is the important? Even though science has given a lot, lots of contributions. Science has done that and this, everything is all right. But the thing is that humanities is the subject or is the branch of study that tells us about our nature being a human, and we have to grow, how we have to grow from day to day, what are the what the impulses are, what the ideals and aspirations are. These are the things that we have to learn from the humanities. But whether it is sciences or humanities, whether they are natural sciences or social sciences, they touch only the periphery of the reality. They touch only the outside, the expression, the multiplicity of manifestations. But what the central being is, you have to learn also if a student is to consider himself to be really educated. So the point is that he says that all these branches of study teach you different things that is related to whether it is science or natural science or whatever humanities or anything. But it is the responsibility of the student that he or she should learn it. Then only a person can be called himself or herself as educated. Mere sciences and natural or social are not enough, he says so. The function of the university is not merely to send out technically skilled and professionally competent men, but it is their duty to produce in them the quality of compassion, the quality which enables the individuals to treat one another in a truly democratic spirit. So he says that, that is, if the universities just pump out those people who are professionally qualified or competent, that is not the real aim, that is not enough. The thing is that we should be able to instill the quality of compassion, that is, we should instill all the democratic, so-called democratic values in those students. Our religions have proclaimed from the very beginning that each human individual is to be regarded as a spark of the divine, Tatvamasi. Okay, Tatvamasi. That art though, is the teaching of the Upanishads. So he says that basically we are a tiny bit of divinity. We are a part of this divine. That is the whole world or the whole spirit, the Holy Spirit or whatever we call it. We are a part of it. That is the basic meaning of Tatvamasi. We know that. That art though. Okay, that is you, that is the thing. Okay, national education does not mean that subjects like physics and chemistry, engineering and technology change with the boundaries of nation. It means that there is a national heritage, a tradition of values into which the students should be initiated. India is not a geographically abstraction but a living spirit. So he says basically that it is not something, India is not just a collection of a lot of states with a specific boundary, but India is a living spirit that lives in us, all of these citizens. Okay, the outlook associated with the country has been a spiritual one, that there are higher laws of the universe than those studied by sciences and technology, that the world is more than what we see, feel, touch, and measure. Two principal features of the modern world are that we are members of one another. These are the two principles that I have already mentioned in the summary. If you remember that, that is, there are two principles that describes or defines modern world. These are, the one is we are members of one another. We are members of one another, that is we should, this is a kind of internationalism, that is a humanism. Okay, we are members of one another. That, the second one is, there is no decree of God or man which compels us to be sick and hungry, poor and unemployed. So we can't say that it is their fate or this is the fate of that country or that citizen. That is not right. He says that the strong shall help the weak in the foundation of all civilized existence. So it is the responsibility of those who have to share it with those who have nots. Okay. As the Bhagavad Gita has it, we should aim at wisdom as well as knowledge. Jnanam Vijnanam Sahidam. That is the teaching of Bhagavad Gita, the practical way of life. So basically, Jnanam Vijnanam Sahidam, that is, a knowledge without wisdom is useless. But so if we aim knowledge it should be we should be able to achieve wisdom as well. That is a teaching of Bhagavad Gita. It is a very good point. At a time when we are obsessed with technical achievement rather than with absolute values, with practical work rather than with a full life, it is good to realize that technology is for man and not man for technology. The material things of the world are to be used for expanding man's knowledge and enriching the treasures of the spirit. So, it is not enough to feed the human animal or train the human mind. We must also attend to the needs of the human spirit. We must learn to live from a new basis, discover the reserves of spirituality, the sense of the sacred found in all religions. So he basically says that if we don't have, the point is this, if we are educated, doesn't mean that we have this wisdom. So wisdom and education, knowledge, both of these should be the aim of a person. If we have knowledge but we don't, we have lots of, we can see these kind of people in everyday lives, that is they have lots of degrees, but the point is that they don't have the wisdom. That is the reason why all these problems are created basically. So even in Bhagavad Gita, it was back then itself, it was included that Jnanam Vijnanam Sahidam is the best thing. So we all, whenever we teach our students, we know that we do the same thing. We just impart the syllabus, we teach all the materials, but how much, how, to what extent we try to instill wisdom in them. That is a point that is included here. Now search for truth. He goes on. There is, however, no non-incompatibility between the findings of science and the doctrines of religion. The search the search of truth is their common goal, though they have different ways of approach to it. So here we can see his philosophy. Okay, search for truth. In this topic, we can see the philosophy, that is basically how he connects science with religion, and the teachings of religion, plus how he connects it with the studies of religion. He says that the search of truth is their common goal, though they have different ways of approach to it. Since God is truth, Satya Swarupa, the quest of truth is the quest of God. Man who makes a machine is greater than the machine. He who splits the atom is greater than the atom. Science does not suggest the omnipotence of matter. It suggests the supremacy of the spirit of man. The spirit which moves in the minds of the men, which inspires and guides them in their quest, in this quest, is divine. So he says that basically religion through its own way us to seek God, to find God, the truth. The truth is God itself. Here what science does is that same thing, but through a different method. That is the thing. So here actually the supremacy of the spirit of man is celebrated by the science as well, just like how religion does it. The word Brahman connotes both the truth which is sought and the spirit in us which seeks it. A scientific view of the world reveals to us a central mystery which is not disclosed to scientific observation. Okay. Our attitude, it should be one of pity, humility, and adoration. We must acknowledge that truth belongs to God and ideas belong to men. The poison of intolerance is inconsistent with the mystery of God. Too much blood has been unnecessarily and unjustly shed in the name of religious doctrine. The different religions are great spiritual achievements of man, and we should take pride not in one special production of mankind, but in all, for all are fellow pilgrims. He calls them as, or the followers of each and every religion as fellow pilgrims, treading our ways to the truth in every great faith. So he basically says that he started comparing the older religions with spirit science. The spirit of inquiry to find truth is basically the nature of all religion, and he goes on. He establishes that all followers of different religions are fellow pilgrims. We all are fellow pilgrims, where we take our own path in seeking the truth. And he points out an important Tamil work. Okay, Tirukural is claimed by the followers of Jainism, Buddhism, and Hinduism, and teaches a universal humanism. Basically, Tirukural, the work is considered is followed by followers of uh, Jainism, Buddhism, and Hinduism. Basically, even though all these are different religions, all of them claim it. Okay, then it teaches universal humanism. True religion requires us to extend our sympathy even to those who do not belong to our group. Religious pride may make us hold that true religion is our own, that we are the people and wisdom shall die with us. So basically, every religion just make us think that we are right. But he says that we are beyond that. That is not a right attitude. He says that we all are fellow pilgrims. It is necessary that if we want to attack the problems with our country, which our country faces, poverty, malnutrition, disease, defective water supply, people dying like flies in some parts of the country, basically all these are the same things that we face nowadays. We know that these are the same problems faced by India. These are all things which must make us feel ashamed of ourselves. It is necessary for us to care for the poor. Attention to the poor is the supreme test by which any government is judged. If we are able to judge to be civilized society, our first interest must be what we are doing for the thousands of people who are suffering from undreamt of evils, who are the victims to say to say all of all sorts of epidemics in rural areas, and who died like flies on the pavements of our country or in rural areas. Basically, he says that we have to take care of the poor people in the country. That is our supreme responsibility. That is something that we have to do as a service to the humanity and God. If we want to tackle these problems, it is essential for us to develop science and technology. Okay, we need science and technology to address these problems. We must develop these things. We must adopt a scientific outlook. Every one of us must be endowed with a scientific spirit. Obscurantism, superstition, and such other things which we have weighed us down for centuries must be removed, and human beings must feel that they are rational human beings with dignity, with a sense of responsibility. Responsibility not merely for what they do, but for the poor who are entrusted to their care. So he basically says that we should have a scientific temperament. We should have scientific spirit in order to overcome the problems by taking care of thousands of people, in order to make ourselves responsible to take care all these problems. We should have this scientific attitude outlook. Again and again remarks were made. A special lecture was delivered at Cambridge saying that a scientific culture and an academic or literary culture are two different things, that as I have already mentioned, and one has little to do with each other. So that is the scenario, that is the context of this particular essay. We produce either seers or technicians. We produce men of intuition, of imagination, or we produce men with mechanical skills, with practical ability. But we do not produce men who are at the same time seers and technicians. People who are able to develop their imagination and at the same time develop their scientific skill. So he basically, this man, that is Dr. Radhakrishnan, is an excellent example of this combo of both being a seer and who has this he was a teacher, plus he was a philosopher, plus he was a statesman. So he says that it's possible that a person can have these both these qualities within them. So that should be the aim of our education. This whole concept of our cultures being divided, of there being two, is something which is, to my mind, unfounded. Truth is indivisible. He says that truth is indivisible. That is a single entity. That is the ultimate entity. So whether it is historic truth, literary truth, or scientific truth, the approaches may be different, but ultimately what we do is exactly the same. It is the imagination that is aroused in us by the study of literature. It is the imagination again that makes a scientist go forward. This hypothesis makes him remold the environment by which he is presented and makes him bring out the deepest secrets of nature. So basically, it is imagination, that quality, that ability that makes us move forward, whether if we study literature or science. So basically, that is the same spirit. It is the spirit in the man that sits in judgment on the facts of nature, which enables the human being to reshape the environment. We should reshape not merely our outer environment but our inner environment. Also, environment also. Our inward forces, the internal power we have, even that has to be remolded. He says that basically it's a spirit that works in us. So basically, there is no point in considering both these branches of study, humanities and science, as different entities, but rather these are complementary. That is the point. So, knowledge and wisdom. Now, he goes on describing knowledge and wisdom. Most of us think that we are scientists because we press a button, the light comes up, we press another button, the telephone rings, we press a third button, we get the motor car outside. But we do not know how these things function. What is the knowledge which is enshrined in these instruments? We know only how to press a button and get something done. This is we live in the surface of human life, robots, mechanics, technicians. We do not know what the depths of these things indicate and stand for. If we know that, we will never say that science is a different discipline and not human discipline. And the other things, literature, history, etc., make a different kind of man. It is not so. We must study science not from the surface but from its very depth. We must try to understand how all these things happen, how the human beings has been able to penetrate into these things, and how it has brought about a new transformed world. It is not necessary for us to be technologically or mechanically uniform. That does not follow. If we have human spirit cultivated, we will not become mere mechanical robots. The very transformation that science has brought about will make you raise the question of the meaning of existence. This that is part of the quest for knowledge. You want to know why knowledge is what it is? What is knowledge which science contributes? What is the relation to the knowledge which one branches of discipline give us? So basically, he says that in order to understand anything, we just see things from the peripheral point of view. We just see it from the surface. But actually, even to understand in order to understand science in its true sense, we should dive into the depth of knowledge. That is the ultimate seeking of knowledge. There is a general criticism leveled against us that uh, where our knowledge of nature is increasing, our wisdom is diminishing. So basically, there is a the knowledge is increasing, but wisdom is decreasing. The spectacular achievements of science are very impressive, and they have got such great power in their control that they can devastate the world. If there are people who contemplate the results of nuclear developments, they will feel, what is it that has happened to man? Why is it that he has increased in worldly power, has so much extended his body through his control over radio, television, and other machines, and yet his soul seems to be stagnant? So, this is the problem. His soul is stagnant. It is not developing. It is not the level of the spiritual level of a person is not increasing in part with the knowledge in those worldly things. That is the problem we face. It is not growing correspondingly. This There is a disproportion between the growth of wisdom and the increase of knowledge. It is this disparity that has impressed many people. Let us try to extend our understanding of the nature of things. Let us have certain values which will be utilized by the mechanical devices and contrivances we have brought about. So he says that basically we need to understand that there is a need to revive ourselves. We need to understand the spiritual essence part of a human. It is necessary for us to know whatever may be the nature of science, it is the spirit of man that is expressing itself there. Every human individual must look up to himself, not as living on the outer surface of things. There is a living depth in him. There is a center there which persists, which abides, whatever may be the changes. So basically, for science and for humans, this spiritual aspect is common. So basically, it is the same thing. The spirit in a human being that is expressed in different forms. So we should identify that. It is it is a misunderstanding that that science is completely devoid of human values. There is some spiritual inadequacy bordering on illiteracy among the graduates of our country. They go through their routine, they pass their examinations, and yet do not seem to know what the first principles of Indian culture are. So that is the reality. We have degrees, we are graduates, postgraduates, but the reality is that we don't have spiritual, we don't have that expected level of spirituality. That is the problem. If we live today, it is not because of our great industrial progress or mechanical efficiency or our atom bombs and things like that. We need to recognize this reality. We live today because there are still people who illustrate for the commonality the path of spirituality, and their behavior is something which is divinely ordained. It is because of these kind of people who really showed us the true path of spirituality, and their behavior is something that help us to move forward, that help us to live in this uh, comfortable environment. That is the thing he says. And then see the spirit of those scientists and that other great personalities, okay, their contributions. It is such people who represent the true culture of our country, the culture of our country, the reality. That is Adhyatma Vidya. Adhyatma Vidya is something. Of all sciences, the greatest science is the knowledge of your own self. That is, first we should understand ourselves. First, we should have this quality of the real science, scientific knowledge. That is Adhyatma Vidya. We should know ourselves. Knowledge of your own self is the most highest. It is the ultimate knowledge. That is the first thing and the last thing of Indian culture. So he says so. This is the essay.